Today we're going to be doing a big project on our 2022 Grand Design Imagine. Well, today I'm going to be repacking the wheel bearings on our 2022 Grand Design Imagine, and they recommend that you do this every 12 months or every 12,000 miles. So that's really easy to remember. Just remember 12-12. Now, in addition to repacking the wheel bearings, I'm also going to be rotating the tires. That's also recommended as well. Some recommendations say between 3,000 and 8,000 miles. So it's a good time for us to take care of that as well. Now, one other thing I want to mention, while we were at the Tampa RV show, we visited the booth JFP Solutions, and they gave us a demonstration on the hub saver. If you're not familiar with the hub saver, what this does is it eliminates any possibility of your wheel and hub coming off of your trailer if you have a major wheel bearing failure, and it stops it from coming off and going down the road and causing a crash or damaging somebody's property. This will keep your tire on. It will allow there to be a slight wobble in the tire so that you are aware there's an issue, but it gives you time to pull over and safely take care of the problem. Now, we're not sponsored by Hub Saver. We purchased these ourselves, and this is an amazing product, and it's very inexpensive. They have no social media presence, so the only way you're going to find them is by going to their website, which is thehubsaver.com. Make sure to check them out. So while I'm repacking the bearings, I'm also going to be installing these as well. So some of the tools you're going to need: plenty of shop towels. I have a rear wheel seal remover or puller. I got some extra cotter pins, different sizes. I have my rear wheel seals. You always want to replace these. You don't want to reuse the ones that are on there. I have plenty of gloves. Actually, I have 2 boxes of gloves. A bearing packer, and I'll show you how all these work. I went ahead and picked up some red and tacky spray grease to get in some of the tight areas. While I'm taking care of this, I'm also going to be lubricating our suspension system. So you'll want to use some sort of spray grease to get into those tight areas. You're going to want a can of brake clean, and it's recommended that you use 1 can of brake clean per tire. Your normal socket to take off your tire, a breaker bar, is going to be very helpful. You're also going to want a torque wrench to put your tires lug nuts back on to the proper torque. I have out a pair of pliers in case I need them, a screwdriver, a pair of channel locks are going to be important, and I also have a grease gun, and I have a couple of these oil mats. They are used to soak up any oil, and I will use these just to have a clean place to set everything as we're doing this job. You're also going to need some sort of jack, whether that's a bottle jack or a hydraulic floor jack. I have jack stands here. For safety, you need to make sure you have jack stands underneath your rig. And the other thing you're going to want is a trash can that's readily available, because you're going to be throwing a ton of shop towels and gloves in the trash. So let's go ahead and get started. So make sure to loosen up the lug nuts before you lift the tire up off the ground. You don't have to have an impact to do this. They are nice, but just a breaker bar and a socket will do the job. If your lug nuts are on so tight that you can't get them off, they're torqued down too tight. The other thing I forgot to mention you're going to need is a hammer or a mallet. dust cover looks really clean. And just my initial observations, I'm seeing some red and tacky grease here. It looks really clean. So once you have the dust cover off, you need to pull out this cotter pin. And your castle nut should only be hand tight, which this one is. So then you just take off the castle nut. Set that aside. Then you're going to want to take your washer off. The easiest way to get that is just pull out a little bit on your wheel hub. You want to make sure nothing drops down on the ground. You don't want your bearings or anything getting dirty. So always make sure you hold your hands under here and you want to catch those parts. So you got your washer and your bearing is sitting right here. There's still some red grease, but there is some dark colored grease, so it's a good time to change these out. They feel really smooth. You just want to inspect them. Make sure there aren't any pits, scratches, any damaged bearings. You want to make sure they're not any different colors like blue. That means they've had a lot of high heat. But these feel really good, so we'll get those cleaned up. And now you can take your hub off. The inner bearing and the wheel seal are on the inside of the hub here. So this is where I'll use my seal remover, the tool, and get that seal out of there, and then I'll pull the inner bearing out and inspect that and get it all cleaned up. Before I do that though, I want to just wipe this off and get all this dirt out of here. We're going to end up hitting this with brake clean and we'll get it all cleaned up. As you can see, that's why you don't want to reuse your seals. It takes a lot of effort to get them off. They end up getting dented up a little bit. So just pitch that. And now your your inner bearing is loose and comes right out. And this one feels really smooth. I don't see any discoloration or any pitting. So we'll get these cleaned up and we'll reuse these. Now your inner bearing is the big bearing, the larger bearing, and your outer is the smaller size. So just wipe all this grease out of here. Clean out the races that are on the inside here that your bearings rest up against. You can see how dark some of that old grease is. Alright, so now we'll take some brake clean and we'll spray all this out. Now you also want to clean off the spindle. Get that nice and clean. And this is also a good time to inspect your brakes. Now these brakes work with a magnet. This magnet right here, when you apply the brakes, it charges the magnet, and the magnet sticks to the inside of your drum and it pulls your brake shoes open like that. So that's working properly. Spray that down as well. Alright, Now we can start wiping down and cleaning up all the parts. Repack the bearings, put it back together. So now we're ready to repack these clean bearings. Grease packer is really nice. Very convenient, has a lid to keep it clean when you're storing it. Basically has a greaser here. You just fill it with as much grease as you want, and you place your bearing in here, put this, screw this back on top, and then you push it down into the grease, and it has holes in the bottom that push the grease up through your bearings. So we'll start with the inner bearing since that's going to be going in here first. You're going to want to drop it in cone shape down. And now we'll just push it down and the new grease will come up through. So as you can see, it pushed all that grease right through the bearing. Some of it looks dirty, so I'm just going to wipe that off. So now it's all fresh grease in there. I'm going to take a little of this grease, just put some on the inside of the race here, put a little on the spindle. So now you're going to take your new seal and put your seal on. You're going to need a little block of wood or something. They do make seal drivers, seal tools, but if you don't have one, a block of wood will work. You're just going to want to make sure it's tapped down nice and flush. Just make sure it's not raised up anywhere around the hub there. So now you're ready to put the hub back on, and we'll pack the outer bearing and install everything. We'll go ahead and add some grease in here. Alright, so we'll pack our outer bearing. As you can see, that's all nice and packed. Slide your bearing in. Now this is where we'll add our hub saver. These hub savers come two to a pack. So if you have a single axle, you only need one pack. If you have dual axles, you're going to need 2 packs. Oh, it does not fit in there. Okay, well, I ordered the hub savers to work with 6 lug nut rims, and these do not fit inside this. So we're just going to have to send these back, get the correct ones, and we'll install them once we have the correct size. Now they say you want to tighten them down with a pair of channel locks, and then you loosen them. Right there is finger tight. Now we will just put a cotter pin back in. And just reinstall your dust cover. And that's it. That's all you do. So we'll just do that 3 more times and we will be done. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I want to lubricate our suspension system with this red and tacky spray grease. I just want to hit a couple of these areas where there's a lot of contact, right here where the hangers are. If you're backing into your campsite and you're hearing a lot of cracking and popping, a lot of that comes from your hitch, but some of it also comes from your suspension system. So while you're under here taking care of your wheel bearings and you have it off, it's a good time to just hit some of these spots. Well, we hope this video was helpful. Just a quick demonstration on how to repack your wheel bearings as well as grease some of your suspension parts and all the tools that you're going to need to complete this job. We appreciate you watching. Now get out there and wander.